today I finished the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Finally. I actually bought it on release. I bought it the day of release. And today I finished it. Today, July 26th. When the fuck did it come out? Was it March? Was it April? I don't remember. But like, something like that. It took me that long to finish it. I want to say, like, generally my sessions when I was playing it were pretty meaty. It's just I took such fucking long breaks in between because I didn't fucking want to play it. I didn't feel like playing it. And I've been very vocal about it on Twitter, about my distaste for the game. Man, I did the stream, right? I did the one stream when the demo came out, and I was pretty positive on it. Like, for the whole time, I was looking forward to it. I had pretty high expectations, I'd say, you know? Like, I wouldn't say, ooh, this is gonna be the greatest game, right? It wasn't like that, but it was like, this was very solid. Like, it looks like they know what they're doing. It looks very interesting. It looks like an interesting direction. Honestly, the first time that I felt something, that I knew something was kind of wrong, is when you start playing, and you see the opening credits and stuff. You see like all the fucking people who worked on this game. There's one name that was missing, and that name is Mitsunori Takahashi, who was the combat director of Kingdom Hearts 2 and a bunch of other Square Enix games. And there was like reports before the release of this game that he would be involved with it. He would be handling the combat in FF7 Remake. But like those reports have turned out to be false. I didn't scrub through like the whole ending credits again to see if he's like anywhere there. Maybe there's like a special thanks or something, but yeah. When his name was not there, I was like, that's weird. That's not what I heard. And then, sort of as it went on, yeah. Well, I'll say one thing immediately. I'm gonna talk about spoilers toward the end. I know that there's probably gonna be people listening to this who haven't actually played it yet. So I want to be fair and like just not go into spoilers at all for a little bit at least, and then toward the end I'm gonna talk about all the crazy fucking shit in this game. I'll say original FF7 spoilers, yes, but not stuff specific to the remake. Not gonna spoil that. That's the idea right now. So yeah, Aerith dies. Aerith dies in FF7. Not in this game. Well, maybe she does. Who knows? See, if I say she doesn't die in this game, then that's, I guess, also a spoiler. Sorry. Yeah, she does die, fuck it. In this game, anyway. So yeah. So, blah. Let's start with sort of the basics. Combat, not even my biggest problem with the game. But like, I still think... So, this game, primarily, I think, from what I hear, was developed by, like, the FF13 team, the FF15... No, not the 15 team, actually. It was mostly, like, just staff that was on Final Fantasy 13, I think. And honestly, I mean, they brought back the stagger mechanic from 13. It's not exactly the same. But that is like weird, right? Because like up to this point that had not been a thing outside of the 13 series. Like, I'm pretty sure 15 didn't have anything like that, right? Did 15 have a stagger mechanic? Wait, let me check. Final Fantasy 15 stagger. Successfully blocking an incoming attack with defend while wielding a shield may result in a stagger of the enemy opening up for attack. Okay, it's something else. It's not the same. Yeah, so the stagger mechanic is blah, you fill up this little bar, and then when you do, when it's full, the enemy will be incapacitated for a little bit, and they will take increased damage. Honestly, the stagger mechanic, I mean, in 13, I'd say it was like kind of weirdly implemented because it did kind of inherently mean that every fight boiled down to the same thing, you know? That, you get up this fucking bar and then you just wail on them, right? Like there's, like it's weird that there was this centralized mechanic that governed over the whole fucking game. In 13, I think that's why a lot of people just hate 13, right? Because that thing and like just the whole nature of the auto attack and the different classes and all this stuff made the game very repetitive. I mean, it's a turn-based RPG, so it's like not the height of fucking combat anyway, but oops, you can't say that here, that JRPGs generally don't have like amazing combat. Final Fantasy VII Remake, honestly, it was like the start of my crusade against fucking JRPGs and turn-based combat and all this stuff. I mentioned this on previous Patreon videos, podcasts, whatever, as well. You know, so yeah, let me just say this game is so yeah, I'm going off track a little bit, but like I said, this game primarily developed by 13 staff, and my first impression was, wow, everything feels like super weighty. Like the thing is, 15 doesn't feel like terrible at all. It actually, I'd say it's like above average for an action game. There's some nice hit stop and some screen shake and like some good animation, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. I think it's mostly just enemy design in 15 that was lacking. Like you can just tell with a lot of these Square Enix action games, a lot of the consistency just isn't really there that you would expect from a Platinum, well, from a Capcom action game maybe, from Bayonetta, Wonderful 101, those games, yeah. I can't say Platinum anymore because Platinum are not the best at the stuff either, as of now. As of like Bayonetta 2, I'd say. Fuck, that's 6 years ago. Oh my god. That's terrifying. Boundless, terrifying freedom. I'm getting ahead of myself. So 15 had some problems, but like, you know what? In retrospect, I'm like, yeah, 15 combat was like kind of cool. It had some weird tech you could use. It was like pretty active. Felt pretty good to hit things. Blah, blah, blah. Not the worst combat I've ever played. This game immediately makes a better first impression. And I mentioned this in another fucking video that like you hit square and like motherfuckers are just flying all over the place and like it's so fucking visceral, right? The problem is that the deeper you get into the game, the less that viscerality really matters because there's so much fucking shit on the screen and so many of the enemies are so like you can't really do anything with them anymore. They will not really react that much to your attacks. Which is a classic problem in like bad action games. The thing that you realize though, by that point you have realized already, that this game is not actually an action game. Final Fantasy VII Remake is not an action game, and this combat system is not action-based, and it's not Kingdom Hearts at all. It's like not a reskin of Kingdom Hearts, which is what some people thought. This game is a turn-based RPG in the disguise of an action game. Like, what you realize quickly is that the fucking just mashing square, attacking guys by mashing square, for the most part, is kind of pointless. like, it doesn't really do appreciable damage in a lot of situations. Like, in the more challenging encounters, it doesn't really do appreciable damage. You really have to, it does kind of boil down, kind of like 13, to the stagger mechanic, where you have to meet certain conditions to stagger the enemy, and then you can do the big damage, right? Mashing square to hit things, like, it does damage when you're like a little bit over leveled, right? When you're just chewing through some mobs, and there's moments where you know, they want to kind of increase the stakes and like increase the forward momentum and all the stuff, and like funnel you through a section really quickly. In those situations, they will throw weaker guys at you, and then you just chew through them with your standard attack, and that feels satisfying and stuff, blah blah blah. But really, the more challenging, the more substantial encounters, you realize, oh fuck, this doesn't actually do shit at all. I mean, it's like kind of a farce as well when you get into like one-on-one boss fights with Cloud later. So you're playing Cloud and then just fighting other dudes. And it's like they just have to do so much shit to not let you mash square. Like, so many guys will just block all your attacks, and then you just have to meet these very specific requirements to even be able to do anything. Really, the only point of the melee attack, just mashing square, really the only point is that it fills your ATB bar. So instead of waiting to fill ATB, you just mash square now. But it's really, like, it functions so much like a turn-based game. It's not turn-based, right? Like, it's literally not turn-based, but it has, like, kind of the rigidity of a turn-based game, you know? Like, when I launch a guy in DMC, that's like kind of a consistent dynamic thing, right? Whereas, so there's like this idea of pressuring or toppling enemies. It's like kind of like Xenoblade. Xenoblade's like, I remember Maximilian, like, that's always the game that he threw around when he tried to describe the combat. You, like, for example, you have a guy who's weak to fire, my favorite, right? My favorite thing in a JRPG, a guy who's weak to fire. Hit them with fire, that will topple them, and then it will say pressured below their health bar. And when they're in that state, their stagger bar is more easily filled up, right? And, like, just when and how you can topple enemies like that, it's like so rigid and like nebulous. There's no good physical feedback for how it works, right? It's like, I mean, to take my earlier example, right? You hit a guy with fire who's weak to fire. Sometimes that will pressure them, but other times that it will not. And you don't really understand why, because there's like some weird numbers and like real-time shit going on in the background, and you don't really get it. And basically my point is that I said this on Twitter as well today. Like I said, it has the rigidity of a turn-based game, but it adds the potential inconsistency of an action game and the fussiness that a bad action game can have. Like, obviously, action games can be super consistent and super reliable and super well designed and well made and polished and all that stuff, right? Bayonetta, DMC5, Wonderful 101, those games. But, see, generally, those things are never even an issue in a turn-based game, because turn-based games are so rigid by design, right? Like, things happen in these very... It's like a clock, you know, like, it's like a perfectly tuned clock, like, everything happens, like, exactly as it should. If I hit you with an attack, there's, like, there's, like, very tiny variables, as to how much damage exactly I'll do, but like the idea is always the same, right? Whereas in an action game, if the hitboxes aren't right, if the fucking, I don't know, something about the input buffering isn't right, blah blah blah. There's all this like little shit that can happen that can make an action game fussy. That's usually not a problem in a turn-based game. That's why a turn-based game is way easier to make generally than an action game. And like, that's the thing with 7 Remake. Like, it is a turn-based game. It works under the rules and the ideas of a turn-based game, but it's an action game, and like it's fussy like a bad action game. Like, I had this one boss fight toward the end. I'm not gonna say what this boss fight involved exactly, but like this boss would use all these fucking different attacks, and you would get like a little title for what the attack does, right? Or no, it's just you get like a little name. By the way, it's raining outside. Sorry about that. But well, I mean, raindrops, right? That's a nice fucking ambient thing. So you get the little title for the attack, but that doesn't tell you anything about what this attack is, right? And then, like, the boss, if you've played the game, you know exactly who I'm talking about, right? The boss will sort of pause for a moment, the name of the attack will pop up, and then they do the attack, right? And there's no fucking way that you can actually know what the attack is, right? Beforehand. You just have to let it happen. And then, yeah, there's like no... That's the thing with an action game. Ideally, you want the telegraphing. With an action game, 2 things, right? You want the telegraphing to be in such a way where it's easy to kind of understand what kind of attack it's going to be, right? If it is an unblockable attack, if I should dodge, if I should parry, whatever. Like, yeah, if the boss is charging up a mega fucking death laser, then that tells me, okay, I should get out of the way, right? And I mean, that does happen in 7 Remake. In 7 Remake, and I'm not saying the telegraphing is, like, universally poor. But I am saying, like, you have just bosses where every attack, the telegraphing looks the same, the wind-up looks the same, right? They will just have different names, and then the actual attack will happen. It's just something you can't predict, and you will try to counter. There's like different parry mechanics in the game. There's like 3 different parries, and you will try to use them on like different attacks, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and you don't understand why the fuck. You just have no fucking idea why something worked and why not. And like with a turn-based RPG, like, there's no reliable way to avoid damage, right? That's just the nature of the genre. So you kind of accept that, you know? You kind of accept that the boss will sometimes do a fucking attack, and then you have to get hit by it at least once before you understand how it works, right? But, like, in an action game, like, you can't transplant the same idea into an action game and then have it feel fair, right? In an action game, you have the expectation, I should be able to dodge that. I should be able to reliably avoid that damage. But like, and that's what I mean when I say that 7 Remake is not an action game. It's a turn-based game in the disguise of an action game. Because, yeah, it like expects you to accept rules and like concepts and ideas from the turn-based realm, but like in the framework of an action game. I feel like, am I repeating myself? I don't know, but that's really the problem. Like, yeah, I think if you've played it, you know what I mean. Like, there's just a lot of these little things that in an action game would be just unacceptable, you know? And you have to kind of accept them here because the rules are just different, right? And it's just, I mean, I said on Twitter, somehow this game is like the worst of both turn-based combat and action game combat, right? Like, it's rigid like turn-based. It's super rigid like turn-based, but it's also not transparent and not consistent like turn-based usually is, you know? Because it introduces those action elements so poorly. I mean, even just the fact, I mean, the easiest example is that the dodge roll doesn't have iframes, right? And obviously that's like a conscious design choice. They wanted to move the game away from pure action, right? They wanted to like force you to take damage sometimes, and like in an action game that feels wrong. That's just like, maybe I'm too stubborn, but to me that feels wrong. You know, to me that's like not good design. In a turn-based game, I'm forced to accept it. In an action game, I don't want to accept it. You know, yeah. Let me look up. Fucking. Yeah, actually, I think I said everything that I already kind of said on Twitter, right? I just reiterate everything. I'll say, yeah, like another example, right, is that think about elemental weaknesses in this kind of game. Actually, I'll just read my fucking tweet. It's either changing my setup in these clunky ass menus every 5 minutes, because obviously like they do throw a lot of variety at you with enemies, but obviously the variety means like the variety comes in the form that the enemies just have different attributes and different elemental weaknesses, right? So there is a super optimal setup for every fucking fight, and if you want to do it like that, then you have to fucking fuck around with the menus so goddamn much, especially like toward the end. Oh my god, it's so goddamn egregious, and like my soul just wanted to exit my fucking body, honestly, at that point. Just the amount of fucking times I had to faff about in menus. So you either do that, or you fumble your way through every fight, because your setup is like not optimal, right? And you know, like you could say, oh, DMC3 is like kind of like this, right? Like because the weapons have strengths and weaknesses, and like certain enemies are weak to certain weapons. That's true, but like DMC3 is robust enough as an action game that I can overcome a suboptimal setup. Like every enemy is not just possible, but also fun to fight with any setup, basically. In FF7R, that's not the case. You can't play it like an action game, you know? And like I just had so many fucking moments where like I go into a boss fight unexpectedly, and I realize like maybe 10 minutes in that my setup is shit, right? That with this setup, like something about the fight changes, and that makes my setup not work anymore, right? And then I'm like, fuck. Like I could either, in frustration, like fight through the rest of the battle for like half an hour with this shitty setup, or I could restart the battle from scratch and get a more optimal setup, right? And then do it a little bit quicker, probably that way. But I would have to repeat the first half. That happened to me so many fucking times. Like, just the design of this game to me is so fucking poor. Just so much shit is so poorly thought out, and like, it's like, goddamn, dude. Like, here's the thing. It does come together sometimes, you know? It does come together sometimes. You do have fun moments where you like swap between the characters and like everyone's coordinating really fucking well. And you're like, oh, Tifa does that move, and then Cloud does that move, and then Barret like prepares this attack. Like the way things can kind of chain into each other, and the way you have to make those choices pretty fast. It feels like a new thing, you know? It feels like they're kinda onto something, but it's not really fully working yet. Yeah. Like, see, if it were just a fucking action game, that's the thing, I don't know if that would also really make sense, right? And also, it wouldn't be the same experience, right? Like, I get why people find this combat satisfying. Like, just figuring out a fucking... Like, you can really optimize the fuck out of this game. And I appreciate that. Like, you can create setups and create combos that just annihilate shit, right? Well, with the caveat that a lot of bosses have stupid fucking damage gates. I had so many moments, especially with this dumb stagger mechanic, right? Like, the whole point of the stagger mechanic is that to provide the sense of build up and release, right? You build it up. I realize what this sounds like, but you build it up, and then you get the stagger, and it's like this, it's this big cum, right? And then you just wanna wail on the guy. You like, often, I would save my limit breaks, for example, until I had staggered the boss, and then I want to just limit break them immediately. Just get really in there, really chunky. Except the damage gating often works in such a way where exactly when you stagger them, the boss, like a little cutscene will play, and the boss will change phases, and they will not be staggered anymore. And it's the most unfucking satisfying thing ever. It is so goddamn irritating. It is like the definition of cock blocking. And I feel like I lost my train of thought. What the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, there's like, you can optimize the fuck out of stuff, except for when they damage get you. So that's stupid. And like, it kind of feels interesting. Like, it is not combat that I've really played before. It's like the fastest turn-based game ever. You know? It's like a turn-based game that's not turn-based, you know? Like, legitimately. This is the best way I can describe it. But, and like, that's the thing, it's not a Xenoblade or something either, you know? I don't really like Xenoblade combat. But I also can't speak about it intelligently, so... Like, it's not like Xenoblade where I'm, just spamming cooldowns all day, you know? Like, there is a little bit more to it, I'd say. But yeah. It's just not, like, it's just not working. It's just, there's so many fucking little problems, and, I just don't know. Like, I don't know what the fix would be, you know, because like, just making the action shit a little bit more consistent, a little bit better. Like, there's fights where the enemy, like, just especially toward the end, so much fucking shit is on the screen and going on at once, and like, it's so fucking frustrating. You get pummeled around left and right, and with no rhyme or reason whatsoever. And it's the worst. But there are fights where the enemies are just a little bit more tame, you know? And where everything feels like a little bit more controlled and like it has a little bit more structure to it. And those fights are really fun, right? So I am thinking, you know, if they sort out some polish issues, if like the fights are kind of less stupid, maybe this could be, like, maybe this is the formula for the rest of this remake series. But I don't know. Personally, I would have liked to see them lean harder into the action direction, you know? I would have liked to see a more genuine attempt at an action game, if I'm truly honest. And like, yeah, like, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15, janky as fuck games, enjoy both of those way fucking more than 7 Remake. Like, just in terms of combat and, like, I mean, everything else as well, but specifically the combat, like, it's just such a fucking clusterfuck. Now, if the combat... See, yeah, fuck, I was gonna say, you unlock hard mode after you finish the game, and honestly, I put the game up on eBay already. Like, by the time I finished it, it was already up on eBay. So I knew I did not want to play hard mode, I had no interest in it. But like, when I unlocked it, and when I booted into New Game Plus, and I saw, oh fuck, I have all my shit still. I have all my abilities still. That was kind of like, that was like a little tickle, you know? I was like, huh? That's kind of cool, yeah? Like, there is something in there. And, like, I think that about the game as a whole. There's something in there. There is a good game in there somewhere. But, like, they didn't get the fucking, the diamond out. Now, going back to what I was going to say before. If the combat were the biggest issue, then I could kind of live with it, honestly. The problem is that it's not. The biggest issue with this fucking game is the thing that everyone thought, like, the thing that I thought, no way, people are being way too cynical, there's no fucking way that's true. There's no way that they would do this, because it feels like too memey, too obvious, too, like too tone deaf, you know? But no, it happened. The fucking filler in this game. Oh my fucking god. Like, I said this on Twitter as well. I don't know if I've ever played a game with, like, the sheer volume of slow walking and shitty traversal puzzles in an FF7 remake. Holy lord, dude. And, like, I mean, I just played Last of Us 2, right? And it just made me think of all the fucking weebs who think this game is amazing and then complain about Naughty Dog games because they're fucking movies or walking sims or whatever. Like, what kind of world do we live in that that's, like, a real opinion that people have? You know? Oh, I mean, the fucking donkey video, I think, explained it really well. God damn it, dude. Like, I mean, just like, I love the one example of the donkey video where it's like, yeah, in the original, I walk over this hand in 1 second. In the remake, I have to do this whole fucking minigame where I raise and lower the hand, and like, if I fuck something up, I have to do it a fucking million times again. Ooh. Chapter 17 is like the worst. It is the fucking worst. There's so much forced walking. There's so much shitty platforming where it's like you push the stick upward and it's like completely automated and that's it. But it's really fucking painfully slow. And then, minor gameplay spoiler, the party is split up, right? And you flip between them constantly. And like, then you have to imagine there's like certain materia, you only have one of them. For example, the magnifying materia, right? You only have one magnifying materia. So if you want to use it, you have to fucking change it back between the fucking two parties constantly. And it's, like, I don't know. I don't know how you handle that. I don't know how you can play that and think it's good. And like, I don't know how you can play that and not want to fucking shoot yourself. Honestly. Holy shit. And like, just so much of what you do in this game, the moment to moment, is so fucking goddamn meaningless. Not even just, like, not toward the end, right? It's the whole fucking thing. Like, so many of the environments are so goddamn ugly. You walk and run through so many tunnels where, like, literally the only thing the characters do is walk from A to B, get into repetitive fights, and then talk about getting from A to B. They don't talk about anything meaningful. Nothing interesting happens in all that fucking walking. Like all this walking that was not in the original, you know? Like, they really elongated so many of the dungeons and, like, just, like, you know, set pieces of the original. Without actually adding anything of value, you know? Like, like, literally, I think about early sections where you were Tifa and Barret, and all they talk about is how to get from A to B, you know? So what the fuck does it add? What the fuck? How does it make the characters deeper? How does it make the characters more interesting? It doesn't. And like I alluded to, the tunnels and the environments you walk through are so insanely ugly. It is an embarrassment that the original, the whole design methodology of OG FF7 is that it's a series of unique screens, right? Like every single fucking environment is completely new fucking painting that serves as the backdrop, right? And they were so detailed and so beautiful and so varied, and like replacing that with these generic ass like geometric, badly textured Unreal Engine 4 flat lighting ass tunnels, where like sometimes you have vistas that vistas I don't know that are just fucking PNGs. It's just you see the cityscape and it's a fucking low res PNG. What the fuck, man? I'll say the music in this game is amazing. The music is fucking insane. And that saves so much, right? Like, I still thought this game was good, like, in the first 2 hours, you know? Like, when you escape the reactor at the start, and, like, Cloud is kind of on his own for a bit, and, like, the music is, like, going crazy. I thought this game would be, like, amazing, right? But no. And it still has cool moments with the music, right? Like, I do like the character interactions, generally. I do think the way the characters talk to each other is fun. I think the voice acting is, like, it is very anime and stuff, but, like, I don't care. I don't really have complaints with, like, the characters and, like, the way they're portrayed. I do think the game is, like, kind of tacky. If you're super attached to the original, like, you're either gonna love this or gonna fucking hate it. There's no middle ground. I'm not that attached to the original. I think the original is a great game, but it's not a game that I grew up with. It's not a game that I'm like, ooh, like, I have such fucking nostalgic feelings for. Because, like, I literally don't, because I only played it, like, pretty recently. When it came out on PS4, that's when I played it. But yeah. And, like, there's, like, oh, fuck, dude. I was thinking about Wall Market, right? Wall Market is everyone's favorite fucking part in this game, in this remake. And, like, there's all this meme shit with Cloud dancing, and, like, Aerith and Tifa looking super hot in their dresses, and that's all fine, right? And there's, like, this really corny scene toward the end where they threaten Don Corneo to, like, rip his balls off and stuff. It's like kind of painful. Just, like, the way it's voice acted and, like, just the way the dialogue's written is, like, so, dude, this is, like, it's pretty lame. I mean, I'm all for threatening a man to have, like, his genitalia mutilated, right, if they deserve it.
Prepare yourself.
I think that's great, but just the way it was done was so corny. Anyway, the thing is, like, Wall Market was, like, a microcosm for me why this game is so underwhelming, because you run through this whole thing and, like, you cannot really meaningfully interact with anything, you know? I really question what the fucking point was of making all, like, PS4 next-gen 3D super fucking duper graphics, when your interactions with the world feel like a PS2 game, you know? You can't, like, or, you know, a PS1 game maybe. Because, like, there's this one part where you walk into a bar in Wall Market, and, the guy asks you, take a seat, get a drink, like, let's go. And I'm, like, thinking, dude, I'd love that. Except you can't sit down, and you can't have a drink. And that seems like a dumb thing to complain about, right? Like I'm nitpicking or like I'm being petty. But it's just like, when the whole point of this remake was to make the most detailed, like, dream fucking version of this game, right? when that was the whole point, and when that's the whole reason they had to split it up, then like they didn't fulfill that promise, in my opinion, at all. The only thing they added is fucking filler. They didn't actually make any of the interactions, or yeah, any of the like story beats that much deeper, you know? And that's really the biggest disappointment with it, personally. Like, and that's the thing, I say that as someone who's not that attached to the original. If you're super fucking attached to the original, I can kind of see how just seeing it in this fidelity is like cool. I can see that. But there's just so many shortcuts and so much shit that's just disappointing, I think. Yeah, I thought the whole wall market section was so overhyped. Like, that specifically was like, ugh, dude, like, what is this? My throat's getting kind of sore. I'm supposed to do another video after this. Let's hope I make it. I guess this is a good time. We're 40 minutes in. This is a good time to go into the spoiler section. If you haven't played this game yet, well, I think this game is a 2 out of 5. That's my score for it. I'm still, like, having finished it. The thing is, even though I give it a 2 out of 5, I'm still open to playing the next one, you know? It's not the kind of scenario where I'm like, this is fucking hopeless. Like, no, like I said, there is kind of a good game in here somewhere. I did have good moments with it. I did enjoy generally the characters and like the interactions and stuff, blah blah blah. Like just generally the characters. Cloud especially was very well realized. Like to me, this Cloud in the remake, that's Cloud. That's like my image of Cloud. I think that's pretty cool. So like we can only go up from here, I think. And like the later sort of developments in the game, they do promise like an interesting setup for further sequels. And I'm gonna explain what I mean by that in a little bit. So yeah, personally, still open to playing, you know, part 2 or whatever. Like, I mean, that's the thing. I'm also open to not playing it. You know? Like, that could also happen. Like, we'll see. Okay, I'm gonna get into spoilers now. Yeah, if you don't want to hear them, you should close out now. You should stop the fucking audio. You should close the video. Whatever. I'm gonna give you like 3 more seconds maybe before I start talking shit. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoilers, go. No, you have no excuse anymore. I'm just gonna talk spoilers. What the fuck? What the fuck was that ending? See, I do have to admit I'm a little bit hazy on the details of the Shinra escape. That's where the game ends, right? That's where the remake ends. Like, and like that's kind of what everyone expected, right? It would end sort of just like when they're just about to exit into the whole fucking wide world, right? Which is cool. I think that's a cool setup for a sequel. But it's obvious, even when you don't really remember all the fucking details of the Shinra escape, like I said, it's obvious what the fuck they added to it. Basically, Sephiroth is all over this fucking game. And, see, I watched some Maximilian spoiler talk on it as well. And there are these fucking weird ghosts in the game they're referred to as the Whispers. Maximilian referred to them as the plot ghosts, which is funny because basically the game has like the plot in this game has this mechanic that you have these plot ghosts that basically prevent, as they say it, deviations from fate, right? They keep everything on its intended course. And that is sort of revealed toward the end, like chapter 17, I think it's revealed that Aerith had been talking to these Whispers the whole time. She was like, like in some kind of communication with them the whole time. And her and Red are aware that, like, of their purpose, right? That's what the Whispers do. They keep you on your course. Now, it's really hard to understand what the fuck actually happens. Like, is Sephiroth kind of in control of the Whispers, or, like, we see that Sephiroth... Actually, yeah, I think even in the original, Sephiroth is the one that kills President Shinra, right? I think it still happens that way in this game, and then we escape, and then we meet Sephiroth again on the highway, and then him and Cloud fight. Or, like, him and the whole party and all this stuff, right? And then also we fight the Whispers at that point. And, basically, in the fight against the Whispers and, like, all tangled up without a Sephiroth, it's revealed that if we don't beat the Whispers now, like, we see flashbacks that are very clearly from the original Final Fantasy VII. We see, like, literally the ending of Final Fantasy VII where, like, the descendants of Red 13 and, like, of his whole fucking clan are sort of running around the prairie, and, the whole world is like a wasteland and stuff. And we see the meteor, we see all this shit. Like, all this shit that we know happens in FF7. And then Aerith, I think, says, yeah, this is what's going to happen if we don't beat the Whispers and Sephiroth now. And that's mega interesting, because you do end up killing the plot ghosts, right? You kill the Whispers. And yeah, and you can already see the effects of that in this game. You can see that Biggs, for example, actually survives. Sorry. Apparently, like, it's like very strongly implied that he survives in the end. Even, like, you can already see before the whole Whisper angle is revealed, there's already these weird deviations, right? And obviously as a player, you just think, oh, they're changing the story to, like, make it exciting or something. You see, for example, the most practical example of it is that Wedge actually initially also survives. Like, you have the fall of the plate, and then Biggs and Jesse are presumed dead, like, immediately. But then we find Wedge, and he's fine. And then he helps out later in the plot and all this stuff. That's pretty, like, But then, later, he's, like, whisked away by the plot ghosts. And it's like, oh shit, the plot ghosts are, like, he's had too much influence on this timeline. Like, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but he's had too much influence on, like, what is happening right now. So the plot ghosts are removing him from the picture. And it's like, huh, that's weird. Now, we kill the plot ghosts, and I think that what that just means is that the sequels to this game, like, going forward, all bets are off. Like, anything can happen, really. Like, now that the plot ghosts don't exist anymore, they don't keep shit and, like, its intended quote-unquote course. I'm gonna explain what I think about that in a little bit. They're not there to maintain destiny. Now anything can happen, right? Like, the whole game could potentially just completely deviate from the original, right? Aerith could not die, for example. The thing is, we have essentially the ending fight against Sephiroth in this game, right? Like, there's the fucking, I mean, if you've played original FF7, you probably remember the final fight with that's just Cloud and Sephiroth. It's one-on-one. They're in this fucking black void. And, like, you have these fucking crazy camera cuts and stuff. And the thing is, they do that exact scene in this game, but then, I mean, it's not playable, number one. And then also, it changes slightly in the end that it's not conclusive, right? Like, Cloud doesn't kill Sephiroth. Sephiroth isn't shirtless either. I just realized. But, like, they have a conversation, stuff, blah, blah. obviously my first thought is, they can't just do this again, right? They can't just do this scene again in the final game of the series, right? Like, so obviously it's gonna change, like, it has to change substantially. It's not, like, they can't just, like, even doing Sephiroth, but then making the fight slightly different or something, I think even that wouldn't work. I think the story has to be dramatically different, you know? From the original, at that point. And honestly, I think there's two ways to read this whole scenario. Number one is a more meta way, a less literal way, where the plot ghosts aren't actually like a mechanic in the story. They're not actually really a part of the story, it's just sort of a metaphor for the developers to say, yeah, we killed the plot ghosts in the first game, now, like, basically we're now saying, yeah, you can't predict the rest anymore, but this is like our excuse to just fuck around with the story as much as we want. So that could be one reading, right? It's just an excuse for the devs to say, yeah, we just want to fuck around with the story, and this is our justification for it, right? This is how we get you to accept the changes that are about to come, right? And in that sense, it is so fucking similar to Ava Rebuild 2.2. If you watch the Ava Rebuild movies, the second one is like exactly like this. The second movie is basically FF7 Remake. It's like so, like the parallel is so fucking strong, where it's the same major plot beats, but then with slight differences, and then the ending is super different, and like it blows the door open for like a completely new story, right? That's exactly what's happening here. It's kind of eerie. And like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they took inspiration for that. So that's cool. But I think, so the other interpretation that I think is possible, this is like the one that I'm going with, that I'm choosing to go with. Like, I think what I believe is happening, and maybe I'm like small-brained, maybe I'm also giga-brained, who knows, I'm not sure yet, but I think what is happening is that the original FF7, like, in FF7 Remake, the original FF7 has already happened before. It's already happened one time before, at least. And like Sephiroth did something to go back in time, or something like that, or get some kind of redo, right? Sephiroth, like, it's very clear that Sephiroth has like a larger plan with all this, like, with the Whispers and like all this shit. Clearly, I think when we killed the Whispers, when we killed the plot ghosts, like, Sephiroth kind of got what he wanted. I think, like, that's what it seemed like. So what I think is that original FF7 already happened once before, and this is just another fucking timeline or something. And, yeah, and now that and the plot ghosts were there to, like, preserve basically what had happened previously. It's not, like, the thing they're talking about is not destiny, but, like it's, like, causality more, like, you know? It's just shit that already was, like, predefined, and, like, we know that this happened, so we need to preserve it. And now that the plot ghosts are dead, like, a new timeline can fucking emerge. That's my theory, anyway. And, like, the thing is, in this, if this is what is happening, then that makes FF7 Remake a remake in the most literal sense, right? They're remaking everything. They're remaking, like, the characters are remaking their destiny, essentially, you know? And that's why, like, it's rare. maybe I'm like, maybe this is like conspiracy theory shit right now. But like, it's rare that a remake of something comes out and they like literally just call it remake. You know? I have not looked this up, but I think maybe that's why it's called remake, because it's literally in the plot a remake, you know? And that's kind of giga-brained. Like, the characters are literally remaking their fucking destiny. Wouldn't that, like, isn't that kind of lit? Fuck, there's something else I want to say about this. Oh yeah, the whole Zack thing. I'm not sure what that was about. Like, does Zack live in the... We see Zack. Does Zack live in the end? Was he from a different timeline? Like, maybe Zack already defied the plot ghost or something in the past. We don't fucking know. And, like, very clearly, like, there's Crisis Core references, there's Advent Children references, all over the fucking place. Which is, like, bad, but also cool. Like, I mean, those games are real, those, like, Crisis Core and Advent Children are both really fucking goofy. But, like, it's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind some goof. Yeah. Like, this kind of shit is why, like, just that, and then thinking, oh, it's like a way more open game, probably. The second one, the next one, that makes me curious where this series is gonna go, and that's why I'm still open to playing more. Even though I didn't like this game. Like, you know, like the last couple days, like I've put a lot of time into it over the last couple days. And that's like the most time I've put into a game like recently, you know? And under that scope, I kept thinking, oh, you know, I kind of wish I was playing a good game. When I'm taking all this fucking time to play a video game, you know, that I don't always have, right? But you know what? In retrospect, I don't fully regret it. I am kind of glad that I experienced it. You know, this is like a monumental occasion. You know? This is a big deal. I'm glad it's out. I'm glad most people are happy with it. I just wish I liked it more. But yeah, I guess that's fine, whatever. Definitely 2 out of 5. Fuck, I'm tired. I don't know if I'm gonna do the Hunter x Hunter video right now. Oh god. Maybe I'm gonna do it tomorrow morning. Before I leave the house, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. You'll find out eventually what the fuck I decided to do. Yeah. Peace. See ya. The price of freedom is steep. Fuck. Wait.